I'm Nellie. Standing on the porch of my father's house, I clutch my daughter Lily's hand tightly. A figure stands rigid against the fading light, and even from afar, I recognize the posture, the folded arms, and the stubborn tilt of the chin. It's Vera, my ex-husband Leo's mother. Lily looks up at me, puzzled. "Mommy, who's that?" she asks. My heart beats faster, but it's not fear that courses through me. It's readiness. I've spent years rebuilding our lives, and I won't let the past shatter what we've created. As I walk forward slowly, I'm reminded of how far we've come. It all started when I was in my late 20s, finishing my master's degree. I met Leo at a friend's party. He walked in late, laughing, with his coat slung over one shoulder. There was a warmth about him that drew people in. We hit it off immediately. He asked me about my favorite childhood books and the places I wanted to visit. That night, he walked me to the train and waited until the doors closed. In the following months, he sent me good morning texts, left flowers on my porch, and learned about my favorite novels. When he proposed on the river walk at dusk, with the city lights dancing on the water, I said yes without hesitation. Our wedding was a small, intimate gathering in a church outside the city. I thought I was stepping into a marriage that would be my safe haven. But I didn't anticipate how quickly Vera would insert herself into our lives. She was a strong-willed widow who had lost her husband a few years ago. She believed that her life experiences gave her the right to control every aspect of our household. At first, her comments during family dinners seemed harmless. She'd offer her opinions on what I should eat, how I should dress. I brushed it off, thinking it was just a mother-in-law being concerned. However, when I got pregnant, everything changed. Vera's phone calls became more insistent. She said I was too young and inexperienced to handle a pregnancy alone. Before I could protest, she showed up at our apartment with her suitcases. Leo, who was relieved to have his mother's help, welcomed her with open arms. Vera took over the spare room and started dictating our daily lives. She rearranged the kitchen cabinets, moving the china my grandmother had left me to a higher shelf. She rewrote the grocery lists and set the thermostat at a temperature that was always too warm for me. Meals became a battleground. Vera had a strict diet in mind for my pregnancy, filled with foods I couldn't stand. When I gagged at the smell of boiled liver, she scolded me, saying, "Your baby needs iron. Don't be so fussy." If I asked for something simple like toast, she accused me of being selfish. Leo always took his mother's side, saying, "She just wants the best for you and the baby." But his words felt like a betrayal. I swallowed my frustration, but resentment built up inside me. Sleep was no relief either. Vera believed that napping during the day was a sign of laziness. If I tried to rest in the bedroom, she'd knock on the door, saying, "Stay up. You won't sleep at night if you nap now." Leo would repeat her words with a smile, but it was clear he was just following his mother's lead. The tension reached its peak during medical visits. At one appointment, my obstetrician told me that I needed to rest. My blood pressure was rising, and stress was not good for me or the baby. But before I could respond, Vera leaned forward and waved her hand dismissively. "Young women these days are so delicate," she said. "I worked full-time through both my pregnancies and never had these problems. Don't listen to all this nonsense." The doctor tried to be firm, but Leo just sat there, silent, looking uncomfortable. Walking back from the clinic, I felt defeated. I wanted Leo to hold my hand, to tell me that my well-being mattered. Instead, he walked beside his mother, nodding as she talked about the traffic and the weather. One morning, as I was getting ready to go to the clinic, I was struggling just to pull on my socks. The simple movement left me breathless. My due date was approaching, and even the smallest task felt like a challenge. In the living room, I could hear Vera's brisk instructions and Leo's soft replies. It felt like I was living in someone else's home. As we walked to the train station, Vera criticized my choice of coat. "You're going out in that? Your stomach is exposed. You'll catch a cold, and so will the baby. Leo, after a brief moment of hesitation, sided with his mother. Maybe you should wear a longer coat, he said. I buttoned my jacket and swallowed my anger. On the train, a kind man offered me his seat. I was grateful and sat down, feeling a wave of relief. But Vera, who was still standing, gave me a look. She whispered to Leo, "My knees aren't what they used to be." Leo, without a second thought, leaned over and tugged on my arm. "Mom's tired." "Be respectful," he said. I was stunned. The baby inside me shifted in protest. I didn't want to move, but Leo kept pulling, not hard enough to hurt me, but hard enough to make standing seem like the easier option. I stood up, my knees wobbling. Vera sat down with a sigh, saying, "Thank you, son. At my age, you have to prioritize." I felt humiliated as people around us stared. A teenage girl narrowed her eyes, and a man shook his head in disgust. But then, an older woman, who had been sitting in the middle of the car, stood up and offered me her seat. She had a kind face and a soft voice. "Sit here, honey," she said. "God sees everything." Her words were like a balm to my wounded soul. As the train continued its journey, I thought about how my life had changed. I remembered the early days with Leo, when we were in love and full of hope. But now, I felt like a stranger in my own marriage. One night, when I was on the couch, trying to find a comfortable position, I felt a sharp pain in my abdomen. It was too early, I wasn't supposed to be in labor for another 2 weeks. "Leo." I called out, my voice trembling. He was in the kitchen, looking at his phone. He looked up, startled. "Something's wrong." "It's happening," I gasped. Just then, from the bedroom, Vera's voice cut through the air. "Leo. I can't breathe. My chest. It's my heart." Leo froze, torn between me and his mother. "Mom, hold on," he shouted, then turned to me. "Just wait. Let me check on her." I was in disbelief. "I need you now," I said, my voice cracking. Another contraction seized me, stealing my breath. But Vera wailed louder, "Leo, don't let me die alone." Panic took over Leo's face, and he wrenched his hand away from me and ran towards his mother's room. I was left alone, in pain and betrayal. I knew I had to act. With shaking hands, I dialed 911. "I'm 38 weeks pregnant," I told the dispatcher between breaths. "The contractions are coming fast. My husband left me. I need help." The operator's voice was calm and reassuring. "Stay on the line, ma'am. We're sending an ambulance right away. Can you lie down on your side? Keep breathing. You're not alone." Within minutes, the paramedics arrived. They found me on the floor, pale and sweating. They quickly checked my pulse and the baby's heartbeat. The contractions were too close together to risk taking me to the hospital, so they decided to deliver the baby right there. As I was in the throes of labor, I saw Leo hovering helplessly in the corner, with Vera clutching his arm, pretending to be weak. But I focused on the task at hand. One of the paramedics, a nurse named Ava, held my hand and said, "You can do this. You're stronger than you think." With a final scream, I felt the baby's sudden release. A tiny girl, red and squalling, was lifted into the light. "Baby girl," Ava announced, her voice full of emotion. "She's early, but she's breathing." I held Lily in my arms for the first time, feeling a wave of love and relief. My father, Henry, arrived soon after. His face was ashen from rushing through the night, but when he saw Lily and me, relief washed over him. He knelt beside me and kissed my forehead. "You're safe. You both made it," he whispered. I closed my eyes, exhausted but filled with a new sense of determination. I knew that from that moment on, I had to fight for myself and my daughter. In the maternity ward, Leo called me. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. Mom was having a heart attack." I panicked, he said. I was cold and calm. And what about me? I was in labor. I told you the baby was coming, and you left me. You chose her over us. He stammered. I was scared. I thought I could handle both. I interrupted him. You abandoned me and our daughter before she even took her first breath. You are no longer my husband. I won't let your mother near Lily. He sputtered, don't say that. She just wants to see the baby. I replied firmly, I don't care what she wants. This is about me and Lily. We're done. And with that, I hung up the phone. I then decided to consult an attorney, a woman named Grace. I sat in her office, holding Lily's carrier. Grace was kind and reassuring. She told me that since the apartment was inherited from my grandmother, it was mine, and Leo had no claim to it. She also said that she would file for me to be the sole residential parent of Lily. She advised me to document every threat, every uninvited visit, and every time Leo and Vera raised their voices. I followed her advice. I installed cameras at the door, saved text messages, and kept a log. The first test came when Vera and Leo showed up at my door, pounding and shouting. Open this door, Nellie. That's our granddaughter in there. Don't keep her from us, Vera screamed. I called the police and reported the harassment. When the officers arrived, they warned Leo and Vera and filed a report. Over the next few weeks, they continued to try to get back into our lives. Leo would call, saying he wanted to see Lily, and Vera would leave threatening messages. But I was prepared. I had all the evidence I needed. Finally, the day of the court hearing arrived. I walked into the courthouse with Lily's car seat in my father's hands. I was nervous but determined. In the courtroom, Leo slouched in his chair, looking uncomfortable, and Vera sat rigidly beside him, wearing all black. Grace presented our case, showing the security footage of Vera's outbursts and the audio recordings of their threats. Leo's attorney tried to downplay the situation, saying that Leo just wanted to be part of his daughter's life and that Vera's actions were just a sign of her love. But the judge was not convinced. When I was called to testify, I stood up straight and spoke clearly. He chose wrong. I was in active labor, and he left me to call 911 alone. My daughter deserves a father who won't abandon her. The judge listened carefully. After hearing all the evidence, she ruled in my favor. I was awarded full allocation of parental responsibilities, and Leo was granted supervised parenting time at a court-approved center. Vera was furious. She stood up and shrieked, "This is outrageous. She's lying." But the judge ordered her to sit down, or she would be removed from the courtroom. As I walked out of the courtroom, holding Lily, I felt a sense of freedom. The months that followed were filled with new beginnings. I moved into my father's house, and he converted the spare room into a nursery for Lily. Each day was a small victory. I watched Lily grow, from a tiny baby to a curious little girl. We spent time in the park, where she would giggle at the ducks and the flowers. I also enrolled in night classes to finish my degree. My father would babysit Lily, and when I came home late, he would always say, "You're doing it, Nellie. You're building a life for you and Lily." Now, standing here on the porch, facing Vera again, I know that I'm no longer the woman who would back down. I'm a mother, and I will protect my daughter at all costs. Whatever confrontation awaits, Lily and I will face it together.